This book needs a little bit of explanation. It's both a mix of fiction and nonfiction. And first off, Carl, hit him with the title sequence, huh? And what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Avid Cat Studios. I'm your host, Sir Stormchild. This is Avid Cat. And yeah, we're going to be talking about the worst erotic gangster novel ever written. It's a very strange one, that's for sure. But to give it a bit of context, here's a wall of text now. So this whole thing takes place during the Easter Rising, known as the Easter Rebellion, which was a insurrection, if you want to call it that, in Ireland during Easter week in April 1916. Essentially, they were fighting against the Germans in World War One, and then they figured, you know what, we're just gonna take this stab during this time to push forth our independence because of, you know, history and whatnot. And so that true event turns into this book by this guy, Raymond Queneau. He's a French novelist, poet. He was a really smart dude. And he kind of seems like the guy who would write something like this. Yeah. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. What I mean is, he just seemed like a guy who was really into patterns and the thought process of like how books and everything are formed along with words, because he was like really into like, I think it was like in the encyclopedia, but like the French version of it. Anyway, he was a really smart guy, wrote some interesting stuff, and this is the only novel that everybody doesn't like from him. I mean, rightfully so. It's a little weird. It's overly pretentious, and it kind of undersells itself at the same time. It's a very strange book. We always treat women too well. It's very good in that it's terrible. But it also has to do with, for some strange reason, James Joyce, which, yeah, he's a very famous writer. Like, a lot of the characters in this book are from Ulysses. A lot of like the characters, and like I mean, you can see it here. It's a work of art, if you have to say anything, I guess. And like one of the last works he ever did is Finnegan's Wake, which honestly is one of the most confusing things I've ever tried to read. I'll give it another shot, but boy, it's a lot of words, and it wraps around itself, and it's like cyclical time and words that kind of make sense but don't. Anyway, that was written in like the 30s or the late 30s or whatever. So you combine all of that plus the trash novels that were coming out around the time, like No Orchids for Miss Blandish specifically. That one was singled out. And that has a whole story of this woman who is kidnapped by this gang and then is then abused by that gang and drugged and all that whatnot. And then at the end of the story, she falls in love with like her kidnappers, Stockholm Syndrome and all that. This is not that story. This is like a subversion of everything about that genre, and it's either brilliant or absolute garbage. That's kind of up to interpretation, but here's the basic plot synopsis that I came up with. Also, here's more stuff about James Joyce. If you really want to know it, just pause the thing or just go on Wikipedia. It's cool. This is your basic plot. Feel free to pause that, but I'm going to go over it more in detail. And then these are your characters. Basically what you need to know as who they are, as per like the last video. So, moving on. So, getting into the characters, because, you know, what's a story without them? You have characters like Gertie Girdle, who's this woman who's trapped in the water closet, the bathroom of this post office that all these guys decide to take over during this armed insurrection that happened, but all of this is make believe. None of this is true. Parts of it are true, as it's like historical connections, but other than that, no. So really all you got to remember about Gertie Girl, she's a short blonde and she doesn't conform to what most people consider like the beauty standards of the time, like actually wearing, all the extra armor that they had to wear back then. So she doesn't do that. And throughout the story, she goes from being this damsel in distress to seducing all of these dudes and keeping them there in that area as like her boyfriend on the ship starts shelling the fuck out of the city. It's this whole thing. The rest of these guys, except for clearly at the bottom, Commander Cartwright, who is her fiance. That's really all I need to know. He's in the Navy. He's her fiance. McCormick, he's the leader. It's really all you got to do it. Some of these I have what they are because that's all I can remember about it. Gallagher, J's it to DG. I'll explain that in a minute. Callanan, he's the first, I guess you call it perv or whatever. He has a girlfriend. They all fall for her, and that's the point. Like, instead of like in No Orcas from His Blandish, who everything is kind of forced upon her, and then like she just kind of becomes this, like she becomes the lover of them like throughout the thing. This one, she's like subverting them and then purposely doing things to keep them distracted and whatnot. Although it doesn't explain that all that well, but it's not supposed to. What's it talking about? Shoes. Keller loves his machine gun. Yeah, that's really how he just sits there. He like pets it and he loves this thing. It's like not like a 50 cal, but like something like that where you're sitting down like do, you know what I'm saying? So in Caffrey, the only thing I can remember about him is he has to poop, and he's the second perv who gets at Gertie. O'Rourke, he's a very, it says medical student, but like he's very more proper, and like throughout the whole book they keep saying like, oh, we've got to be correct, I had to look that up. It just means proper, but he keeps saying the word correct. I don't know if that's a translation thing. There's several things. Moving on before I get distracted again. Dylan, who is a dressmaker. Is he gay? Is he not? I don't really know. It kind of alludes that he is, but you can make dresses and be a dude and like chicks. Like, it's not really like a deal breaker. I mean, maybe for the whole purpose of this, because whatever. So moving on into the plot. Carl, plot. I don't know what you do there. So we're in the post office in Dublin in Eden Key. In 1916, roughly about, well, April, because the 1916 rebellion only lasted about 6 days. But they made their point because, holy crap, a lot of people died. It was like over 400 people killed, I think, during the whole rebellion, where the Irish just took over certain key areas in Ireland because they're like, we want our own thing. We want Irish independence, which I believe is the catalyst for the 1918 thing, where they broke away, and then you got Northern Ireland and Ireland, which is the Republic of Ireland. I think that's like the catalyst for this. Which, I mean, you're fighting your own people while your other people are at war. It's a whole thing. So to start the book, setting the scene, they kill the doorman as soon as they walk to the door. Which I'll probably read some passages in there. God save the king, he repeated in a loud voice, for he was loyal to the crown of England. It was with horror that he had observed the eruption into the post office of 7 armed individuals whom he immediately suspected of being Irish Republicans and in an insurrectionary mood. Why, that's a twister. God save the king, he murmured for the 3rd time. He didn't no more than murmur this time, for he had already manifested his loyalty to such an extent that Corny Keller wasted no time in injecting a bullet into his noggin. The dead doorman vomited his brains through an 8th orifice in his head and then fell flat on the floor. The rebellion is kind of already happening in certain other places, and like I guess he's kind of getting wind of that or something. Or has that feeling because he's just like, God save the king. And they keep saying Finnegan's Wake, which wasn't a saying until 1939, but like it's anachronistic and it doesn't really make any sense. It's not supposed to, I guess. I don't know. If you like an author, sure, just outright steal their work because you think it's hilarious. So they kill the doorman. McCormick's like, that's not cool. Whatever. We can't stop now. Get all these women out. Like all the clerks and the post office, which was a lot different than our normal post office today. It's like a bigger open air thing with a bunch of tables and whatnot. And most of the clerks are women, especially in this. He tells them, get them all out of here. And sometimes he uses very harsh language. And then they go outside. They start yelling, Finnegan's Wake. Finnegan's Wake! Finnegan's Wake! Finnegan's Wake! And then I bought the book, and I'm more confused now than ever. Have you never seen... Hold on. It's this. It's like 600 pages of weird, let's call it English. I guess if you're a drunk Irishman, you'll write anything. Hi, been there. So it's like, literally has like stuff like, bride leaves her raid at punches time, stud stone before a race course full, 2 bells that make one appeal, dry yanks will visit old sod, and 4-tiered skirts are up. Mezzadamp, it goes on like that. Like, it's just like a string of words and consciousness. But I think that's the point. And it all like wraps around and on itself. Anyway, sidetracked again. Gigi, Gertie Girdle, is in the water closet. I think she broke the toilet. I think it's the whole thing because like they won't quit flushing, and she's just like, "Oh no, what do I do? What do I do? Oh, there's some commotion outside. I wonder what that is. Oh, how's my hair?" That's essentially her character at that point. I must tidy my hair a bit to please whom I wonder. My beloved fiance. I don't know why I'm giving her a southern accent. Whatever, we're going with it. My beloved fiance, Commodore Sidney Cartwright, hasn't arrived yet to admire my beautiful mane. When shall I see my beloved fiance again? When? Until then, my goodness gracious, whom shall I be able to please? Those people running, I wonder why. But my goodness gracious, those people running, I wasn't thinking about them. I was thinking about my hair. And then she hears gunfire. And during all this, they cap the postmaster. They just walk in there, go hi, bam. Or Cormac kicks in the door and then shoots the postmaster general. Why? I don't know. But the post office is a very central strategic location. I mean, not where it is. I think it was like a jeweler's or something in real life. But because post office, because a lot of information goes through there, and also most of them I think used to be banks or something at one point. So there was like a post office and a bank, so they had money there. So they all start mounting this defense. This dude shows up, gives them a machine gun. Finnegan's Wake, fight for the cause, brothers, I guess. And so two of the dudes, I think it was, I should have wrote it down. I didn't. Let's call it Callanan and Keller. Who knows? I don't know. Some of these guys, they run together, and I don't remember who's who, and it you don't care when you're reading it because they kind of just blend together, except for Gallagher, who's kind of just a Weasley kind of guy. But they go on this beer run. They go into the the liquor store, or not the liquor store. It's like the pub, the public house, the pub. That's what it's short for, by the way. So they go in there and they smash the guy over the head with a broken beer bottle or whatever, and they steal all of his crap. And I know I'm going to butcher this. You should Biatha or Bifa. I don't know. I don't speak Gaelic. That word means whiskey. And it's also kind of a bastardization of that word because it's supposed to have a G, not a C in it. I don't know, languages, man. So, yeah, whiskey is now involved with a machine gun. So, things are going to go well. One of the clerks comes back and says, "Hey, you guys kicked me out. I left my purse in there. Can I go get my purse?" They're like, "No. You can't come in here. We're men. We're mounting a defense." And he's like, "I don't care. Give me my purse." And then the English show up and just mow her down. They just start shooting, and one of them hits the woman, and then she dies right there in the street. After one of them tries to go back inside to try to get her purse or whatever, but he goes inside. The English attack. So now there's just a dead girl in the street. So if you're wondering why Jay's it to DG, and then you see DG in the street, we're getting there. So Caffrey has to shit. And as he's trying to find, get to the bathroom, we're trying to figure out why he has to poop. And it goes through this whole weird dialogue of even the greatest warriors have this sudden urge once the adrenaline starts to kick in, and then you're being fired upon and shit's getting real. The shit wants to come out of you. It's happened to the best of us. But while he's looking for a bathroom up there, watching everything, supposed to be paying attention, and this is why the English keep firing and get closer on him, because Gallagher's up there jerking it to the chain of a dead girl who has her legs spread open. You're like, what? That's not right, dude. And he even knows that it's not right. And you have to figure that out just from context. Because it says his rifle is waving back and forth, and then he wipes his hands on his pants or whatever, and you're like, wait, what did he do? Oh. And that's the weird thing about the sex in this. It's not always direct. It's not always said directly. It's not always given direct. Sometimes it's it's words or situations where you're like, I get it. You're knocking boots. Okay. Quiet, said McCormick, and he went back up to the first floor. Keller was dreaming by the machine gun. Keller and Gaffrey, sitting on the steps, their rifles between their legs, were chatting. "In the island where I was born," said Gallagher, "which is called Inniskey, we like storms and tempests on account of the shipwrecks. After, we comb the beaches and pick up whatever we can. We find a bit of everything. We live well on our little isle of Inniskey." "Why did you leave it?" asked Caffrey. "To come and fight the English. But when Ireland has been freed, I shall go back to Inniskey." "You better go back straight away," said Caffrey. "You'll find plenty of wrecks there. I should hope. We have a special stone for that in our village." "A stone?" And then it goes in this whole thing about a weird flannel stone. I don't know. So, about chapter 21, by the way, which some of them are very long, some of them are real short. My favorite one's near the end. So they finally find her in the bathroom because Caffrey has to poop, but Caffrey can't read, so he doesn't notice that it says ladies on the thing, and he's trying to get in there. He's like, "Oh, I think somebody's holding the door closed." Because somebody is in there, and she's freaking out this whole time. It intercuts with chapters of her being like, "Oh, there's somebody out there. I hope, the postmaster's still alive," or whatever. They've already hidden the bodies by the time they find her. And she's like, "Oh, I hope he's okay. I wonder what my boyfriend is doing." I'm so tired. I don't want to go out there because like they might be because she opens the door. She sees guns at one point. It's like, uh-oh, shit's getting real. So they kick in the door and find her, and then they drag her in for interrogation. And it's a weird interrogation. Like, what's your name? Are you for the Republic? And what's your thing about God and shit? And then two of the dudes up top, I think it's Gallagher and Callanan, I think. And Keller, they're all like up there, like, you know, hanging out, like supposed to be on watch, and they start like, oh, we need to get some lobster. I'm like, you're in the middle of fighting. You think about fucking lobster. Okay. God talk. It's literally that. They're asking her about God and like, what's your stance on this? Oh, she's atheist. Oh, what does that mean? He's like, no, I'm not. I'm agnostic. I can't really like prove one way or the other. And it's weirdly philosophical in this entire badly written story. Automatically, she opened her bag and took out her comb. She wore her hair short, which was still a rarity in Dublin, a new fashion. Examining herself in the mirror over the wash basin, she liked the look of herself and considered herself dangerously beautiful. She ran her comb through her hair slowly, deliberately. The slight scraping of its tortoiseshell teeth over her cranial skin, followed by the gentle undulation of her curls, made her quiver most delightfully. She stared at her eyes as she was trying to hypnotize herself. There was no more time, and the fusillade had stopped. And then Cartwright gets the word to put down the rebellion. Just start firing, which is a thing that actually happened. The Navy just... I don't know if there's ever been like movies of it or whatever, but remember Gangs in New York where the Navy just starts bombing the crap out of the city? Think that, but in Ireland. Same thing happened. So because they think, well, we're going to get caught and it might as well be proper and not get caught with these bodies that we got lying around. We need to hide those. So they put them in wheelbarrows, except for like the dead girl downstairs, who they can't fit her in the wheelbarrow with the other two bodies that they're going to wheel into the river. Gallagher looks like he's like groping the dead girl, but he just can't figure out how to like keep her up. But at the same time, he's doing that. Is it weird? Yes, it's very weird. And then in the meantime, upstairs, Callanan's supposed to be watching Gertie on security detail. She just walks out the door and starts hanging out with him. And then, like, they get shot at, and she's just like, "Oh, are you okay?" And then, gets up close to him and starts, doing the things you do. Or as Wendy Goon would say, kithing. Yeah, they do. And apparently she was like a virgin, or like he's thinking that or whatever. Doesn't really get around to her perspective. So he does it more than once. And the reason it says cat noise is because downstairs, the guys start freaking out and they're like, "The hell is that noise? Like, what are we hearing?" I'm like, "I don't know. It must be a cat, man." So they send somebody upstairs. They send Caffrey to check on Callanan. And Caffrey's like, "Oh, it's a cat, all right." Yeah, he was getting that cat, that's for sure. Slapping himself on the thigh, he let out his enormous laugh. "Shut your traps, you beasts," said O'Rourke. "Dirty beasts." "Oh," said Caffrey. "Jealous?" "Callanan wouldn't do that," said McCormick. "In any case, you can't hear anything. She'd be yelling if he had evil intentions." "Perhaps she likes it," said Caffrey. "Just imagine, maybe she asked for it." All of this is wrong. He had addressed this remark to Gallagher. They both laughed. O'Rourke stood up. "Dirty beasts! Dirty beasts! Shut your filthy great traps!" As if medical students didn't know a thing or two about filth. "Prude, you played too hard at St. Joseph last night." Or prayed too hard. Or he played too hard. I don't know. That was good. So they get done. They come back downstairs, like, "We need to keep an eye on you because it'd be easier if you're around all of us, that we can keep this woman safe and keep her proper and keep her pure." So he gets a phone call. That's why it says phone call BJ McCormick. That's not his name. she hides underneath the desk because like the gunfire starts happening, but he gets a phone call. And you ever seen that scene from Police Academy where he's giving the speech and then President Clinton happens? Yeah, that. While he's on the phone. And he's like, he's not saying anything by the end. And there's like, I guess he's dead. It's so stupid. Parts of this book are actually funny. If you really think about it. But it's not very well done, but it's intentionally. Anyway. And then they go through the whole, like, do we surrender? And they're like, nah, dude, we're going to fight to the very last one. And they all have differing opinions on, like, how they feel about that. Which, understandable. McCormick starts kind of freaking out. He's like, that happened. Do I tell the guys? Do I not tell the guys? What was that? Was that really a cat going on upstairs? Who knows? So they send her back up there, and Caffrey's supposed to watch her this time. Remember, he's the one who saw the two, upstairs the first time. Gallagher, I think, goes up there. He's like, she's gone, man. She's gone. I don't know where she is. So they do kind of a rudimentary, like, try to find the girl, which takes a couple chapters for some reason. The Furious moored fore and aft a few yards downstream from O'Connell Bridge. On Commodore Cartwright's order, the guns were prepared to gun, but he still felt a certain reluctance to use them. Not that he had anything against crushing papists and Republican rebels, but this post office, whose functionary and almost Doric architecture was definitely ugly, greasy, and sordid. This post office conjured up in his mind the engaging personality of his fiancée, Miss Gertie Girdle, whom he was to and wished to marry in the very near future in order to consummate with her the act that was just a little intimidating to a chaste young man, the strange act whose cult peripecia transform a young bent from the virginal state into the pregnant state. That is one hell of a sentence. Then he goes back up there to bring Gallagher, or bring Caffrey his dinner, and he's upstairs with the girl again. And she's all into it because the longer she knows that, like, once they start bombarding him, she knows that her husband or her fiance is out there, and if she can keep them all in this one location when they're bombing it, she doesn't really care if she lives or dies as long as she does her, like, duty for her country, essentially, for her king, I guess. So that's like Caffrey bones. Oh yeah, and then one of the shells takes off Caffrey's head, like mid-stroke, call it that. So like, yeah, baby, woof, the head goes wrong. It goes off. And then, he's kind of still thrusting a little bit as he's dying, and then blood goes everywhere. The first shell planted itself in the lawn of the Academy Garden. Then it exploded, splattering grass and humus all over the statues copied from antiquity. Plastered statues adorned with gigantic zinc fig leaves. The second followed the same path. A few leaves fell. The third landed on Abbey Street lower on a group of British soldiers, which it destroyed. The fourth carried off Caffrey's head. Then Gertie comes downstairs and is like, hey, your friend's dead. Do you have any lobster? Like, okay. Because she's kind of snapped into that arrow. She's like, okay, yeah, I finally got one of you guys. I didn't know how to do that, but she was like trying to keep them near windows and where you could kind of be seen. I mean, well, they're still doing the naughty, but so the Navy ships, they're firing, but they're firing around the post office because, the commander knows that his girlfriend works at this post office. He's like, I don't know if she's there or not, but I don't want to like just be like, I'll kill my girlfriend. That's fucked up. So Gigi is bloody, but she's weirdly happy. McCormick starts freaking out. He starts having existential thoughts. Dylan goes upstairs, finds that he finds Caffrey, and then he finds his head over there. He faints. So he's out of it for a while, and they're like, where's he at? I don't know. They all start having confessions. Because, like, Gallagher's like, no, dude, I saw, Caffrey boning this chick. And then Callanan's like, no, I did her first. I mean, he uses the hard R word. So, technically, yes, but technically she's willing. So I don't think that kind of cancels out that word. It's still unwanted, regardless. And again, that's supposed to be weird. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. So they all have this confession. McCormick, it's like, yeah, dude, I didn't tell her to, but she put it in her mouth, dude. I had nothing to do with it. And then O'Rourke kind of starts falling in love with her for some weird reason. Most of them do. She gets put into another room to be watched, not be like watched, but like just be like, okay, you're freaking us all out. Go over here now. So she takes off her dress to try and like get it dry because it's coated in blood. And Dylan goes in there because he's also the dressmaker who made her wedding dress, who he now has to go get because she's like, hey, can you go get my stuff or whatever? She tries to come on to him, but he's just like, yeah, no. I kind of like this guy. I think it's Keller. I think he and O'Rourke. I think he has like a weird thing for him. Like there's like one or two like little phrases that even kind of hints at that. I mean, so he freaks out regardless, because she's hot. I mean, what do you want? And also, by the way, they've been drinking the crap out of this whiskey, so they are clearly hammered. Not like hammered, like stereotypically Irish hammered. I think Callahan just starts repeating the same words. I was like, the scrum, the essentially. And they're all kind of freaking out. O'Rourke goes into the room where she is because he wants to profess his love to her. And that's the only time she starts really freaking out. Gertie starts being like, dude, what's up? Like, yeah, I had these two other dudes, but like, I was kind of in on the whole deal. I'm just here kind of like mostly naked, just wearing, like a corset and shoes or something. Like she's not wearing much at this point. And he's just like, oh, baby. And then we get to the best chapter in the entire book, which is chapter LXII, which I think is 62. And it just said, Buzz went the shell. Great literature. So yeah, like this final one kind of goes off. Like most of them are dead except for I think Callahan. No, it's Gallagher, I think, and Keller. That's it. Everybody else is basically just dead. Like O'Rourke's barely alive. Like, I love you. Love me. And he's like, ew, gross. And then she, puts on her wedding dress because Dylan comes back finally after all this happened. He's like, here you go. Here's your wedding dress. Okay, help me get into this. There's my, my boyfriend's coming. So yeah, Commander Cartwright shows up. The rest of the military takes over the post office, secures it all down, and then she stands behind her boyfriend like, oh, don't it. I love you. You know what I mean? Like, that's obviously not what he wrote. The firing squad got into position. I wish to add that, contrary to what you believe, you do not deserve a worthy place in the chapter of world history devoted to heroes. You have dishonored yourselves by the base gesture that my fiancée, her legitimate modesty notwithstanding, had no choice but to describe. Are you not ashamed of having tried to lift up a young lady's dress in order to admire her ankles? Oh yeah, that's right. They think she just showed her. They tried to look at her ankles, and that was enough to mow them down. Lecherous characters, you will die like dogs with a tarnished, despairing conscience. Keller and Dylan trembled, not a whit. They technically never touched her. Behind Cartwright's back, Gertie stuck her tongue out at them. What have you say for yourselves? Cartwright demanded. We always treat women too well, said Keller. How true, sighed Dylan. A few seconds later, peppered with bullets, They were dead. The end. And then the rebellion ends by them all just getting mowed down. Like, we always treat women too well. And then they all get killed. Funniest line in the whole damn book. Well, second funniest line. The other one was like the buzz went to shell. Like, I actually laughed out loud at that part. That was really funny. But like, this whole book is subversive on purpose. Like, again, back to the whole history part of it. He wrote this book under a pseudonym originally called Sally Mara, but it was translated into French by another person. So he made it seem like, no, it's from Ireland. It's written by a woman. This is a new thriller. You know, along the lines of no orchids for Miss Blandish, which I've never seen. Apparently, there's a movie about it. It actually sounds good, but like, I don't like that kind of content. But I would still probably watch it. So he writes this book under this weird pseudonym, and it fails miserably. I guess intentionally, weirdly enough. And then, like, later on, another publisher re-released it as the complete works of Sally Mara instead of just being We Always Treat Women Too Well. And it fails again. And then they put it in like the whole, Raymond Queneau, his whole bibliography or whatever that word is. I can't think of right now. His word book list, and nobody likes it. They're like, it's fine. And honestly, I have to say that, and like, it fails on every level. It fails at, well, except for making me laugh. It fails at being erotic. It fails at being, every erotic scene is just awkward as shit and uncomfortable. And every military action is like overly violent. And I kind of like some of the wording, but not all of it. It's a weird book. Would I recommend it? No. Unless you like terrible, like, trash novels. It's totally up your alley, but I'm warning you. Not all the language is nice, but it's the 40s. There's a whole lot of stuff, other stuff written by Raymond, and he liked patterns, and this is statistically the worst erotic gangster thriller ever written on purpose. So that's it. That's the story. Thank you so much for watching. Please be safe out there, and I will see you beautiful motherfuckers in the next one. All right. Later, guys.